In the open ocean, there is no ground, no shelter, only water and the long, patient pull of gravity. And then a shape appears, a bell of living glass, a drifting clock with no hands, a creature that seems more like weather than animal, a jellyfish. It should not be possible. No bones to brace against currents, no fins to steer, no claws, no teeth, no armor, no brain to plan, no heart to push blood, no lungs to drink the sea. And yet it moves, not with strength, but with rhythm. One soft contraction, a release, a pulse that catches the water and lets the ocean do the rest. To our eyes, it is delicate, almost absent, a thin membrane holding the shape of a thought. But this ghost has a history. Jellyfish are among the oldest animal lineages on Earth. Their ancestors were drifting here long before the first dinosaurs lifted their heads from the land, long before forests learned to breathe skyward, long before the world looked anything like the one we know. They have lived through mass extinctions that erased the dominant life of their time. They have endured oceans that warmed, cooled, turned acidic, lost oxygen, gained it back. They have persisted while continents shifted like slow tectonic tides. So the mystery isn't that jellyfish exist. The mystery is that they keep existing. In the shallows, sunlight turns them into shimmering ornaments. Easy to overlook, easy to dismiss. But out here, where the blue deepens into something darker, they become something else. Not decoration, a design. Because the open sea punishes mistakes. It strips away anything unnecessary. And what remains is a body that is almost pure function. Water, shaped into a hunter. Look closely. That bell is not just a dome. It is a pump. A living engine that draws water in and pushes it out. A simple machine made of muscle and jelly. And beneath it, the tentacles. Threads that can stretch, coil, and drift like smoke. So fine they vanish until they touch. Along them are cells unlike any other in the animal kingdom, stinging capsules, loaded like tiny spring-fired harpoons. When triggered, they explode outward in a fraction of a second, delivering venom and anchoring prey. A weapon older than Jaws. And still, how does a creature with no centralized brain hunt at all? It doesn't think the way we think. It feels. A net of nerves spreads through its body like a faint electrical fog. It senses touch, chemicals, vibrations. It responds, not with intention, but with instinct refined over 500 million years. It doesn't chase. It waits. In a world where the currents decide everything, waiting is not weakness. It is strategy. But there is something unsettling here. Because the jellyfish is not built like most animals. It is built like a question. What is the minimum you need to be alive? Not to survive for a season, but to survive for ages. To outlast catastrophes. To drift through planetary change as if it were just another tide. And that is where our story begins. With a creature that looks too simple to be real, and yet holds secrets that ripple far beyond the sea. Because the deeper we follow the jellyfish, the stranger it becomes. And soon, the ocean will reveal that this ghost is not merely ancient. It is transformative. Out here, the ocean is not empty. It only looks that way. The light thins into a colder blue, and the surface world begins to fade, until it becomes a memory above the waves. In this space between brightness and darkness, jellyfish drift like loose pages torn from a book. They do not swim with purpose. They surrender, and that surrender becomes movement. A contraction of the bell pulls water in. A release pushes it out. Jet propulsion, simple, ancient, efficient. But there's a cost. Each pulse takes energy, and jellyfish live on a knife edge of fuel. They are built for patience, not speed. Their bodies are mostly water, with just enough tissue to hold a shape. It makes them light. It makes them quiet. It makes them hard to notice until it's too late. Most animals have defenses you can see. Teeth, spines, armor. Jellyfish carry theirs in invisibility. A predator searching by sight can glide right past. The ocean's blue becomes camouflage, and the jellyfish becomes a trick of refraction, sunlight bent through flesh. But invisibility isn't enough, because the sea is full of mouths. So jellyfish evolved something stranger, something that feels less like biology and more like machinery. Nematocysts, microscopic capsules, packed into the skin of the tentacles like loaded ammunition. Inside each one, a coiled thread sits under pressure, waiting. When a fish brushes past, when a planktonic crustacean kicks too close, chemical and mechanical cues trigger the release. And then it happens. A harpoon fires faster than an eye can follow. The thread punches, anchors, delivers venom. Not one, thousands. A soft creature, armed with detonations. The sting is not always meant to kill. Sometimes it paralyzes. Sometimes it holds. Sometimes it simply convinces the predator to let go. But even this simple weapon is tuned to a world of different targets. Some jellyfish hunt tiny copepods. Others can subdue small fish. The venom, the length of the tentacles, the strength of the bell. Each is a different answer to the same oceanic problem. How do you feed when you cannot chase? And then there's the body itself. Jellyfish have no blood vessels, no respiratory system, no complex organs packed into a protected cavity. Their tissues live close to the surrounding water, so oxygen and salts can diffuse directly across their skin. The sea becomes part of them, and they become part of the sea, a way of life that seems too exposed to survive. Yet it does, because diffusion is enough when you are thin, when you are simple, when you do not carry heavy structures that demand constant repair. Still, there is a limit to simplicity. So jellyfish do something unexpected. They build senses without building a brain. Around the edge of the bell, many species carry small sensory structures, statuses to detect gravity and orientation, and in some, primitive eyes that can detect light, shadow, even shape. Not sight like ours, but a kind of awareness. Just enough to rise toward plankton-rich layers at night. Just enough to sink away from harsh sunlight. Just enough to keep the bell upright in a heaving sea. A nervous system spread like a net means signals travel without a central command. No single control room. No decision maker. The jellyfish is more like a chorus of reflexes, each responding to the world in its own small way. And somehow it works. But the ocean is changing. Warmer waters can speed jellyfish growth. Overfishing can remove competitors and predators. Nutrient runoff can feed blooms of plankton, and the plankton feed the jellies. In some places, more jellyfish appear where fish once dominated. When conditions favor them, they multiply, not as individuals, but as weather. A bloom, a living fog that can stretch for kilometers, pulsing and drifting with the current, turning the sea into a field of stings. And that raises a new question. Are jellyfish rising because they are winners, or because the ocean is losing? To answer, we have to follow them deeper, past the blue, toward the black, into a world where light itself becomes rare. Because in the deep, jellyfish do something even more improbable. They begin to glow. Down here, the ocean does not sparkle. It absorbs. Sunlight cannot follow us past a certain point. The blue collapses into ink, and distance becomes meaningless. In the deep, vision is a luxury, and light is a currency, spent carefully, stolen, or made. And then a flash, a soft pulse of green, a ribbon of blue, a sudden bloom of living light, hanging in the black like a thought you can almost remember. Bioluminescence, cold light, made without heat. A chemical reaction tuned by evolution, efficient enough to be used in a world where energy is scarce and meals are uncertain. For jellyfish, this glow can be many things. A lure, a warning, a decoy, a message, and sometimes a last resort. To make light, organisms typically combine a light-emitting molecule, luciferin, with an enzyme, luciferase. The details differ across life, like different dialects of the same language. But the result is universal, photons released from chemistry, turning darkness into information. Jellyfish use this language fluently. Some glow along the bell's rim, outlining the body like an electric halo. Some pulse in waves, their light rising and falling with the same rhythm as their movement. Others shine only when disturbed, when touched, attacked, or startled, like a silent scream. Imagine you are a predator in the deep. You close in on a pale shape, and suddenly, the water erupts with light. Not just one flash, a cascade. The jellyfish becomes a beacon, and in the deep ocean, being seen can be dangerous. That sudden glow may attract a larger hunter, one that hunts the hunter. A defensive trick called the burglar alarm. The jellyfish cannot outrun, so it recruits the darkness itself and turns it against its enemy. But one jellyfish changed our relationship with light forever. A small species from the Pacific coast, almost unremarkable in appearance. Yet inside its tissues is a molecule that would become one of the most important tools in modern biology. Green fluorescent protein. GFP does not create light from nothing. It takes light, often the blue light produced by bioluminescence, and re-emits it as green. It is fluorescence, a transformation, a shift in wavelength, like turning one color of the sea into another. In the jellyfish, this protein is part of the glow, an enhancer, a translator, reshaping a flash into a brighter signal. In human hands, it became something else entirely. A marker. Scientists learned to attach the genetic instructions for GFP to other genes. So when a cell makes a certain protein, it also makes green light. Suddenly, processes that were invisible could be watched in real time. Cells dividing, neurons connecting, embryos developing. Life, illuminated from within. It's hard to overstate the strangeness of this. A drifting animal with no brain, no heart, no bones, giving us a way to see the inner workings of our own bodies. As if the ocean, in its oldest language, handed us a lantern. And still, the deep keeps its secrets. Because bioluminescence is not just a tool for survival. It shapes entire ecosystems. In the midnight zone, where there is no day, many animals migrate upward at night to feed near the surface, then sink back into darkness by dawn. This daily movement, massive, global, and largely unseen, is the largest migration on Earth. Jellyfish are part of it. They rise with the hunger of the night. They descend with the returning light. Their glow becomes a moving constellation, a slow tide of stars beneath the sea. But here is the unsettling part. In a place where light is scarce, every flash can be a lie. Some creatures use glow to mimic prey. Others use it to hide their outline, matching faint light from above. Some produce clouds of glowing particles, detachable, drifting decoys, while they slip away into the black. And jellyfish, with their simple bodies and ancient weapons, are both target and trickster. So what are we really seeing when we see them glow? A signal to a mate? A threat to a predator? A lure to something smaller? Or a language we don't yet understand? To answer, we have to move from the chemistry of light to the architecture of life. Because the next secret of jellyfish isn't just how they shine. It's how they become many. How an animal can change its body, change its form, and in the right conditions, turn the ocean into a bloom. At first, it's only a few. A drifting bell here, a pale thread there. Then the numbers climb. 1 becomes 10, 10 becomes 100. And before the human eye can make sense of it, the ocean is full of them. A bloom. A living accumulation that arrives like weather and moves like a tide. From the deck of a ship, it can look like the sea has thickened, turned to gelatin. Underwater, it becomes a forest of tentacles, a slow-moving veil. Not a swarm with intention, not an army with a plan, just life taking advantage of an opening. Jellyfish don't need much to take over. They do not build reefs. They do not guard nests. They do not raise young the way most animals do. They simply multiply, quietly, efficiently, using a life cycle that lets them switch modes, from anchored to drifting, from hidden to overwhelming. And that is why blooms can feel sudden. Because the ocean hides the early stages. Far below the surface, attached to rocks, pilings, shells, and the undersides of docks, there can be tiny forms you'd never notice. Polyps. Small, stalk-like bodies that look nothing like the jellyfish we recognize. They wait. Months. Sometimes years. Then, when conditions shift, temperature, food supply, salinity, those polyps begin to transform. They segment like a stack of saucers. One by one, they bud off free-swimming young called ephyrae, miniature jellyfish, already pulsing. And if the timing is right, the sea fills. This is where jellyfish become more than creatures. They become a consequence. In some places, blooms have clogged fishing nets until they tear. They have shut down coastal power plants by blocking intake pipes. They have turned beaches into